A decision to pick up boxing again. It's been 30 years that I boxed last time, so that was quite a while ago. I want to talk about my decision, and in general, the context of this podcast is to give people a sense for what it feels like to run a hedge fund. And I think certainly picking up boxing might not sound like, okay, this is the natural thing to do when you're in the business of running a hedge fund. But I think it's important, just like I said, in the context, and I'm going to explain why this is so important for me. Running a hedge fund is a very personal thing. Also, there's very little things you can generalize, but I think some of the things you can generalize, and one of them is certainly to continuously keep trying and doing new things, changing your mindset. I mentioned that also in the context of reading. I think reading books is just conditioning your mind. And I think mind and body are very closely tied together. So boxing is, on the one hand, a very, very good workout. And on the other hand, also, it's a new thing. And that's almost the only, let me say it that way. This is much more important to do something new than what you actually do. So I could be picking up climbing or surfing or something else. But I think boxing also is really a very good workout, in particular for my age and my body type. This is the Nadim Wrong podcast. It's August 21st, 2021. This is Krim Delco. Since the last update, we're up 1.5%. Now for the year, we're up 3.2%. The market's up roughly 19%. We're underperforming by 15.8%. So I picked up boxing last week. It was in the context also, my son started high school. So I figured he's doing something new. Let me do something new. I became a member of this boxing gym in San Francisco, Third Street Boxing. Shout out to Third Street Boxing. So far, a very good experience there. It's a real boxing gym. It's a gym that, what do I mean with real boxing gym? So there's this prototype of a boxing gym, I think started with Rocky Balboa, and I think proliferates throughout the boxing world. And so it's kind of like this warehouse somewhere in the corner of the city, maybe in a bit of a sketchy neighborhood. It's a little bit dirty in a sense that not dirty, by no means not hygienic, but it's not this super clean, sterilized gym type that we see, let's say, in these modern gyms. It's more the other way around. It's all dark. And, you know, the guys are there, sweaty. There's a lot of sweat. There's a lot of noises, grunts, all that stuff. So maybe not the most ladylike environment. Although there are women there and a lot of respect for them. They train hard. I think the sport has come a long way, the fighting sport in general. So I think it's a great gym. I think it's great in many ways. Also, the people are cool. The guys I train with are big, bulky, tattooed guys. They look nasty. They look the kind of guys you don't want to get in trouble with. And that's, I think, exactly what you'd expect from a boxing gym. So I think it fulfills that need for me to do something new. This is not your fancy gym that has a box, a heavy bag and a bit of conditioning on the side next to all the other stuff, the Pilates and all that. No. This gym is all about bags and conditioning. The training of a boxer is, I think, three things. One is, of course, the technique with your hands. Then there's the footwork, and then there's the conditioning. I think those are, in my view, the three big things. Now, I haven't started training yet in terms of lessons, and there's a lot of things I need to learn. What I'm doing is more like I'm doing YouTube lessons and things like that, but there's a lot to learn, just the basic stuff I think that I can do myself. After a while, once I get a little bit solid on some of the foundations, I think I will start taking lessons and training with other people. Right now I'm training by myself and sort of just with the people in the gym, talk to them, ask them some tips. They give me some tips. I watch their footwork, look at their footwork, and then of course I do the YouTube stuff, particularly footwork. I think footwork is unbelievably important in boxing because you don't have a lot of degrees of freedom. You have your upper body and your arms, and the goal is to hit somebody from the belt upwards. And there's just not that many degrees of freedom as opposed to mixed martial arts where you have a lot more degrees of freedom. So in that sense, footwork can really open up a lot of spaces, protect you from attacks and all that stuff. So So I think the footwork is the number one thing that I'm working on right now. I'm because I'm also new to that particular part of boxing. Now, by the way, when I say I picked up boxing again, I did box about more than 30 years ago, back in Switzerland when I was in high school, and I was in a boxing gym and I boxed and all that, but I really barely remember anything. But most importantly, I think I didn't do a lot of footwork back then. I was really focused on the conditioning side of boxing back then, because I didn't compete. I did it more for conditioning, and it was as a balance to my skiing. I was actually a competitive skier, and in the winter I did boxing just to condition myself and things like that. So anyway, let's get back to today. So I am back in the boxing gym, and what does this do for me? I want to talk about what it does for me. I want to talk about why I chose it and how important it is to do new things. I think that's really the key here. So let me start with the last one. Why is it so important to do new things? I think doing new things in general is, even from a neuroscience perspective, at this point, I think we all agree that having exposure to new information, having exposure to new types of exercises, problems, it just recalibrates your brain. It gives your brain something new to do. It reduces complacency. It improves sharpness. It improves the necessity to be humble, to learn and get better at things. And those are all incredibly valuable things. I think valuable for pretty much anything you do, in particular the hedge fund business. I think the hedge fund business is prone with complacency, with vanity, with overconfidence, way too much self-confidence and all that stuff, when in reality you're exposed to the market. And I've compared the market often to a mixed martial arts fight, particularly in the hedge fund business. You have a lot of degrees of freedom, a lot of ways to get hurt. You have also a lot of ways to hurt or win. It's not just one-sided, but you really have to be on your toes. And I think humility, the humble approach towards solving problems, the humble approach towards making mistakes, try and error, I think all these things are unbelievably important. And that's really what this does to me. Starting a new sport, I started bodyboarding about 18 months ago. That has opened up all new avenues for me in terms of challenge, in terms of interest. I've discovered the California coast while bodyboarding. I was just at Lower Trestles, for example. I did Black's Beach in the outskirts of San Diego. I did Dana Point, which is a great bodyboarding beach, actually. I didn't know. So things that I don't think I would have done had I not started bodyboarding. So again, I think I can't emphasize enough just the value of doing new things. Everything else equal is very, very high. And now, this podcast is not about giving people advice. This is not a self-improvement podcast or anything like that. So I don't want to go down that route. I just want to say that as far as we're concerned, Orange Capital Partners, shaking things up, doing new things is, I think, part of the key to success. I also see it in the context of other sports. My son is a competitive soccer player. He's a goalkeeper at a U15 team here in the Bay Area, very high level, the highest level that is available right now in the US, MLS Next. And I think it applies to him too. Shake it up, change your training, particularly find new coaches. You got to have, of course, you got to have a team, and you have a head coach of the team and all of that. But as a goalkeeper, you are exposed to other things than just the team and the head coach, or you better have exposure to it. Let me rephrase that. Because why is that important? Because there's two ways to think about this. One is, if you do the same thing like everybody else, how on earth are you going to get better? And second, I think you also need to find coaches, because the training at some point leaves, the basics are not as key anymore. And what's much, much more important is the individual inspiration, okay? Or like every coach, like you take coach A, they can do the best they can, so meaning they can be really good at what they do, but they might not be able to coach you personally because you have different needs, different motivations, different body types. It happens all the time. Let's say in mixed martial arts, you see people like Kamaru Usman. He goes from Florida to Denver because there is a striking coach that fits his purpose much better than, let's say, what he had in Florida. And you hear that a lot. Georges St-Pierre famously chose a coach up in Quebec, the TriStar coach, Faraz Sahibi. I think I might be butchering his name now, but so there are coaches that fit you. There are athletes that fit coaches. And I think as an athlete, you need to keep trying. And I think that, again, this applies to my son. So what is the common thread here? It is keep trying doing new things, keep trying to shake things up. Don't be complacent. Don't be happy with what you got. I'm a healthy person. I have good conditioning, but I picked up boxing now because it's going to elevate certain things of my game to a new level. I used to do jiu-jitsu for about 3 years. I'm a blue belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, in gi jiu-jitsu, and I think the boxing is more valuable to me now than jiu-jitsu. I wish I could do a little bit of jiu-jitsu. There's two problems there. Three actually. One is the COVID, which makes it difficult. Second, I have a little bit of a meniscus situation. And third is also, it's quite frankly, time and money-wise, to have a gym where you do boxing and then also a gym where you do jiu-jitsu. It's just becoming a little bit complicated. Now, there is a gym that I would love to join. It's American Kickboxing Academy in San Jose. Over there, I could mix it up because it's a mixed martial arts gym, but unfortunately, that one is just logistically not possible right now until we move to that area. So this is as far as the why is concerned. Now I want to talk a little bit about what boxing actually does to me. What is boxing and what do I think I can get out of boxing? So first and foremost, boxing is a fighting technique. So it helps me defend myself in difficult situations. I think, but that's almost secondary because I really hope I never have to use it. I'd rather use jiu-jitsu actually in a fight. The last fight I was in about 2 years ago, I did use jiu-jitsu and now no boxing, and now I also wasn't trained in boxing. But it's just the problem with boxing in a street fight is that you can hurt people very quickly, and that creates problems. So with jiu-jitsu, that doesn't happen. So there's definitely a huge advantage of jiu-jitsu when it comes to street fights with untrained people. Back to boxing. What I really like about boxing is the conditioning. So boxing is a very, very tough sport on your body in terms of like you really have to train everything, your legs, your hips, your arms, your upper body. And quite frankly, I like the way boxers look. There's very little vanity muscles, none of that tricep, bicep stuff. It's kind of the core. I almost feel like boxing, like jiu-jitsu, there's one muscle, it's your body. And you really have to learn how to connect all the muscles into one big muscle which does the moves, and that's really what I like about boxing. And I think every martial art in the end, every part of mixed martial arts has that ability, has that characteristic. I haven't wrestled, but I'm sure wrestling is the same. You really have to learn how to mold into one, like all your muscles have to kind of mold into one and then become one big movement. I think the best athletes in the fighting business are such that you don't even recognize their limbs anymore. It's just one big movement, either forward, backward, sideward. And that's really the goal. We do compartmentalize into footwork, upper body, and all that. But in the end, it's all one movement. And you have to learn how to move in one fluid movement. And that's what I'm working on. So I'm working on footwork right now, and then I'm going to start to incorporate striking with the footwork. Then, other than the technique, I think there's just an incredible amount of conditioning involved. The jump rope, the pull-ups, the push-ups, the pull-ups, the core training, which I'm doing a lot of. So and then the bag work itself is also very strenuous in terms of using your whole body, your core, to deliver the punches, do it safely in a way that you don't hurt yourself, and do it efficiently. There's also efficiency and efficacy. So one is you have to hit the person that you're trying to hit, and second, you have to hit the person with the most power possible given the amount of energy you're using. In a fight, you also have to condition that a little bit. You can't use too much energy. So there are all these elements that play into boxing. I thought even when I did it the first time 30 years ago, it was the best training I've ever done, in a sense that it really teaches you how to train your whole body. This goes back to Bruce Lee, train your whole body. You can't just train your arms or your legs or any sport that requires you just to train one specific thing. It's not a good sport for you. Try to find a sport, and boxing's one of them. I think MMA is the other one, even more complete than boxing, where you train your whole body, where everything is required, where in the end, the success is defined by how can you use that one muscle, that one particular, how can that one movement or the execution of that one thing that you need to do, deliver a strike or whatever that may be, how can that be optimized and put together in like I said, in that one big muscle. And if you have a sport like that, I think jiu-jitsu is like that, wrestling's like that, then you're just going to get a very good workout. I think that's kind of it's a simple way to look at it, but I think it's a good way. So if you're in a sport, and that's why sometimes I feel like sports are not sports. I think golf, baseball, softball, lacrosse, these kinds of sports that I kind of look down upon, I mean, they're fine, but I feel like they don't train your whole body. They just train certain parts of your body, and that is just not, I think, the idea that I have, particularly at my age. I'm 53 years old, so I have certain conditions that maybe other people don't have. I have to deal with certain issues that other people don't deal with. It's age related, of course, and genetic, but I think overall, I would say boxing is really a wonderful sport, a wonderful workout, and the right thing for me to do right now. So to summarize, I picked up boxing. It was partly driven also by the fact that my son just started school, so I figured I'll do something new like he did. He started high school, his first year of high school. I also wanted to do something new. I think every now and then it is incredibly important to change things in your life, to change routines. Ideally, also maybe go live somewhere else every now and then. I think these things all add up to a more complete, more interesting way of looking at life, and also interesting way of looking at things. And this is even backed by neuroscience, because in a nutshell, neuroscience says is that we build models with our brain, models of the world, and then we continuously improve them. And if we don't try new things, if we don't put ourselves up against edge cases or new things, uncomfortable things, then it's going to be there's less learning involved. And learning in a neuroscientific way really means just trying new things and then learning from those new things and adapting sort of the model of the world relative to the new experiences that we have. So Bach is the next thing I'm doing. I think I also, if you think about it from the concept of mindset is the weapon. What is mindset? Mindset is a set of tools that your mind combines into action. And the more tools you have, the more action, the more your mind can actually react to the environment. And from that perspective, I think you will have a stronger mindset if you start mixing it up, if you start doing new things more frequently, learn from them, and then incorporate them into your core of abilities and skills that you need. And I think that's really the biggest value that I see from picking up a new sport like boxing. And I can encourage everybody to think about this, and it applies to your daily business as much as your athletic environment. Just try new things, learn from them, and get going. Thank you.